Good morning. I hope you are doing well this morning as we look into God's Word. We're looking at Proverbs 31 this morning, and you probably recognize that Proverbs 31 is about the virtuous woman. But in verses 1 through 9, we actually see not the virtues of the mother, but rather the instruction that she gives to King Lemuel. It says that in verse 1, that this is regarding the words that were given to King Lemuel. And King Lemuel, we don't know exactly who he was, but he was a king in the ancient Near East who ruled under a godly woman of his mother. And so she gives him really three different major thoughts. The first one is found in verse 2 and 3, where she tells him, don't come under the influence of women and of those who may destroy kings. So be careful who you are hanging around with. Have your priorities straight. Don't be chasing strange women. Proverbs talks a lot about that for men and for women, to be faithful to your spouse and to give your heart to the one that the Lord has given you, and to not be led astray. One only has to think of Samson in this regard, and Solomon, of course, later on in his life. Second of all, we see that she instructs him not to take strong drink because it will cloud your mind and not be able to have a clear mind as to how to rule well. Notice that it says in verse 5, lest they drink and forget what has been decreed and pervert the rights of all the afflicted. That it was the king's job to look out for the people, not merely for himself. And we are called to do the same thing, to look out and to love our neighbor. I was watching a football game not too long ago, and they showed the crowd and how the crowd were all drinking and everything. And then they showed the offensive coordinator, and the offensive coordinator had a bottle of water. And I thought it was very interesting because the offensive coordinator has to call the plays and has to have a very clear mind while doing so. There is no way that these people would allow him to come under that influence. And how much more is it for we Christians to have a good mind, a clear mind, to be able to help one another, to be thinking clearly in the terms of God's word, and to love our neighbor in this way. He is instructed here that it is in verse 8, open your mouth for the mute, for the rights of all those who are destitute. Open your mouth, judge righteously, defend the rights of the poor and needy. When you read these, you can't help but think of the fact that the one who did this perfectly is indeed Jesus. In John 6, he talks about how he came down to do the will of his Father, not even his own will, but the will of his Father. And he came certainly to the weak and to those who were mute, to give sight to the blind. He came to rescue us. And so we see in this wisdom that we are to take and to apply to ourselves today. To be careful who we are around, lest they bring us down from our Christian walk. To be careful regarding what influences us, and to be looking out for others. And the reason and the motivation behind that is because this is what Jesus has done for us. I hope that these thoughts will encourage you today as we continue living in some very strange times. But take God's word seriously each day. Allow it to fill your mind. And in this, we truly will be blessed.